Hello everyone, welcome on in. It is a new week here on the Betting Weekly Studios, which means welcome on in to the Betting Weekly Dojo. I'm Nigel Seeley. Before I introduce you to my co-host Neil Channing, please hit the subscribe button, click the like. If you've got any comments here on the Dojo, any questions you want answered or any thoughts of a future show or any gambling related questions you want us to discuss on this channel, please do so in the comment box below. Joining me now is Neil Channing. Good morning to you, Neil.
Hi Nigel, how are you? I was looking at you a lot this weekend on social media because I was amazed that the Oasis stuff looked amazing. So that was the first thing I was thinking of when I saw you just then.
Yeah, incredible evening. Thank you very much for asking me. I went with my son and my daughter. We had a brilliant time. Memories, I was thinking about it, thinking when I was like 21, what did my dad do for me? I mean, didn't take me to like rock concerts and start singing and drinking with me. Like, I don't know if I'm a bad father or is that what like fathers do nowadays? They try to be a bit younger.
I mean,
I can't imagine his
your
father.
Kids, they had to sit next to you singing all night. That's the only thing. I mean, have they ever
That is a
gone
bad thing.
karaoke with you?
They get mortified when I get up to sing karaoke. They absolutely, and I love the karaoke, as I've said to you before.
Does
They
the whole
absolutely
stadium
get
sing?
mortified when I get up
I mean,
singing.
were there people just like not
whole
singing
stadium.
at all?
Not really. No. Even the stewards were singing. It was, and this morning, as you can tell, I've still that was Friday night. It's now Monday morning. I've still got a bit of a sore throat.
I have to bring
but
it
was.
Back. Go on, sorry.
No. I'm just saying it was an incredible experience because you've never been to when you go to a concert, there is certain songs that the crowd don't know, or there's a period where they say, "Oh, these are the new tracks from our new album," and everyone goes to the toilet if they're an old band. But obviously, there was like 21, 22 songs, and it was banger after banger after banger, which everybody knew. Yeah, incredible.
Yeah. From a gambling point of view, bringing it back to gambling, it's actually reminded me. I was checking my balance on one particular account the other day, and I looked to see if I had any open bets. I've still got an open bet on Oasis to play the Pyramid Stage at Glastonbury this year. I don't know why they haven't closed that. I guess they could still do that by the end of the year, but Glastonbury has finished, and it's a fallow year next year. I think I've done my money. How did I get convinced that was a good bet?
I think you rang me. I told you. I think you asked me. I think you asked my advice. So I think I said
Glastonbury, do they? That's the problem. They're just doing this for money, basically.
Yeah, that's the. But anyway, it was a tremendous evening, and it wasn't a tremendous betting weekend for me, don't you? I must admit, I had I gave you last week. I spoke to you about our my new strategy, and my strategy was to go all in on these kind of future bets. So last week, Luke Littler got me out of a bit of trouble, but he was 5-0 down and come back, but obviously a tremendous talent. But I had Linda Noskova in the Czech Open tennis, and she was 7-2, so plus 350. Gets to the final, wins the first set, gets beat. Hedgins for Gardeners, lose there. And obviously, I bet Spain to win the women's final yesterday against England. And England outplayed completely.
Spain were really the better team, weren't they, there?
Yeah, I mean they thoroughly deserved to win, and England went to the penalties. Now, just before we just go on about the weekend football and stuff like that, just want to just say that sometimes you might hear a little bit of a lag on this show. Where Neil currently is probably one of the slowest internets we've ever experienced on the history of this channel. So sometimes when you hear it's a lag on the channel,
let me wind it up again. Sorry, give me a second.
Yeah, there we go. So it's not either me or Neil being rude. It's the fact that the internet connection where Neil. I think they got the internet connection when they bought that sideboard behind us. That they got the Wi-Fi for free with the sideboard from MFI, which has been closed for 25 years. But anyway, that's the reason why there is. But women's football, Neil. I mean, let's talk about that from a perspective of betting perspective. The England team, the Lionesses, if you're from stateside, won the European Championships, back-to-back titles for the English ladies. They were the first English side to win a football tournament outside their country. Obviously, the two previous times that England have won a major championships in soccer, and the men's and the women's were both in tournament stage in this country, and they've come back as heroes to a lot of young girls and a lot of young guys as well. The women's game is massively changing over here. Yesterday was the most watched TV figures for any sporting event last year in the UK. The semi-finals was the previous one. So the women's football was the top number 1 and number 2 viewed television show. It was on both of our major channels over here. But the growth in betting hasn't really there isn't the growth area for the betting area hasn't been as big as the upsurge in terms of the public watching it and the people behind the television cameras. I went to a club last night and watched it. It was absolutely packed, and it was like the men's match to the atmosphere. But from a betting perspective, do you think that the Americans are coming to betting? They've been dominant in world soccer before. The NBA, the WNBA has got big stars. Caitlin Clark, the turnover in that is exceptionally high. Do you think now that the women's game, their Premier League over here is going to see an upsurge in betting on the fact that the Lionesses have done the business again?
Well, it must catch up, mustn't it? I mean, at the end of the day, like you say, they're getting huge TV viewers. Loads of people turn up to these games as well. The women's Premier League games. They get really decent crowds. I saw some. I mean, I do think, looking at social media, I think a lot of the criticism of the women's game is just misogyny, isn't it? Really, I think we have men's and women's tennis. And when you look at the crowd, it's not like all the men go to watch the men's game and all the women go to watch the women's game. But in the soccer, there is a little bit of that. So, the crowd is way more women go to women's football games than go to men's football games, way more. And that really isn't the case in tennis at all, which kind of I find slightly strange. And also, people just accept that women's tennis is a slightly different game to men's tennis. Obviously the serve is the main difference. In the men's game, people hold on to their serve a lot more. The serves are a lot quicker, and there's a lot less long rallies because of the dominance of the serve. So in a way, that makes the women's game more interesting because they have a lot more rallies, and every point is harder fought, and you get a lot more breaks. So it's like the game goes back and forward more. People just accept that. I don't see people saying, "Oh God, women's tennis, isn't it rubbish? They're always having breaks of serve. I'm not watching that nonsense." But you see that kind of stuff all the time about women's soccer, which I kind of feel like this could be a pivotal point, and that might change it. And people might start to realise that it's just a slightly different game. In a lot of ways, it's more entertaining. I think there's a lot less cynicism among the players. Time wasting and fouls and less yellow cards, that kind of thing. And I hope, long may it stay like that. And because it's more entertaining, I think the ball's in play a lot longer. I think it would surprise me if in a couple of years' time it hasn't really taken off as a betting sport. It ought to be successful as a betting sport. And when we talk, we've talked before about obviously in the UK market, soccer is number one. And over half of bets taken in the UK are on soccer. Horse racing is big, but it's declining, and it's still at roughly 30%. Greyhound racing is really declining, and that would be third best. And then after that, you've just got a whole load of sports that kind of bobble around. There have been times in the UK where NFL would be the next biggest betting event of the year. Definitely golf is pretty big. Tennis is pretty big. Motor racing has been big, but it's kind of fizzled a bit recently. And we have changes in whether things are on national television or whether it's pay-per-view only. And once things go to pay-per-view, the numbers for boxing went right down when you had to start paying for every fight in terms of betting turnover. You need really big fights now to have big turnover on boxing. The cycling this weekend, the Tour de France, I think they've had it for 40 years on ITV, so free to view in every house, and it's going to go pay-per-view next year. So I could see that dropping off a cliff in terms of betting turnover. And as sports decline, other sports have to replace them. I think women's soccer will become a massive betting thing in the future.
I think the big thing for the women's game compared to the men's game, so for example, I took myself yesterday. There was 4 couples and we all go to a club and they said, come, let's go and watch the game. So we all went down there, watched the game, and it was a mixture of women and their partners and young girls watching the football. I think the difference is if you went to an England football match or you went to a Premier League football match, everybody has an opinion of the players. So everybody would know the striker, the left back, he takes corners, he takes set pieces. Well, yeah, but you will know someone who knows. You get WhatsApp to bet that particular player. So you would bet that player because you know he's going to take a free kick, he's going to come on, he used to play for that club, he's got a great record against that side. And most of the people in that bar would have a betting slip. They'd be betting England to win 1-0, 2-0. And the club we go to is positioned next to a betting shop. So people go in the betting shop have a bet. I think with the women's game is that people are still unsure of the players. They know the 5 or 6 key players, but to bet regularly on the teams each week and you need to know a little bit more about the players. So once these players become fashionable and there's more information about the teams and the players, not only in the England squad, but the teams at the bottom of the Premier League and the teams in the middle of the Premier League. It just needs more TV though,
doesn't it? I mean, once the...
But that's going to happen.
Yeah, of course, it must happen because it's very popular and it's getting the viewing figures. But, the Lionesses have been on TV plenty of times. I can't really remember Arsenal ladies or Chelsea ladies or who. I don't even really know who the top teams are. I know Arsenal is one of the top teams. But I can't really remember
Champions
them
of Europe, Arsenal. Champions of Europe.
I can't really remember them being live on the BBC playing a game. Has that happened? I don't know. I might have missed
there's a lot of live games. There's a lot of live games on a Saturday and on the BBC, the ITV4, BBC. But I think a television channel is going to come in and take this, and it's going to take it to the next level. And when they go up the next level, betting and familiarising people, familiarise with the players. People know that the players coming in. The only slight difference of it is that the teams at the top of the gap between the top and the bottom is very, very wide. So the handicap in betting will have to be quite high. But if we look at women's tennis, and this, going back to your point about people going on, well, the first question is, whenever you watch a women's football match, the male audience pretty much turns around and says, well, how would they get on against, what would their level be? They're a good pub side. But nobody ever says that about women's tennis players, do they? Never turn around and say, women's tennis, well, where would she be? Would she be
like the over
45 champion?
I mean, 50 years ago, they used to. You had, what was the guy? There was a flamboyant fella who wanted to he took on Billie Jean King, didn't he, in 1973. Yeah. And he had a big bet on it, didn't he, I think? And, that was kind of a big talking point throughout the 70s in a world where, misogyny was a lot wider. But I think the Williams sisters did a lot for changing people's attitude towards women's tennis, didn't they? You don't hear that. You're right. You don't hear that as much now. People criticising the standard of the women's game relative to the men's game.
Bobby Riggs was his name.
Bobby Riggs, that's right.
And the other thing is, well, you got women's 100 meters in the Olympics, men's 100 meters. You never turn around and say, well, he's going to beat her. It's obvious. I think when it comes to like tennis, for example, for me, and obviously we're going away slightly from the betting angle here, but the betting on the men's final will turn over more because it's over 5 sets and the women's is over 3 sets, and there'll be a lot more time in play. Will take up a huge amount of money. But when it comes to equal pay, where the women have been asking for, and these young girls are asking for equal play as the men's in the Premier League, this is where the women's final at Wimbledon this year, Iga Swiatek won 6-love, and the other match went on for Cinderella Alcaraz went on for like 4.5 hours.
It was like
that's where the argument comes in terms of that. Yeah, but the women's turnover in the WNBA is massive, and they've got a huge star in Caitlin Clark. And in the next 5 or 6 years, the women's turnover here, when we're familiar with the players, when it's going to be on Sky Sports, like a set schedule, there'll be turnover on these sports that
it does bring it round to the States, I think, because I find that endlessly fascinating. I was talking to somebody yesterday, and they were saying the sports book that they work in, which is an offshore, probably in the greyish market or maybe black market of US sports betting, doesn't really promote soccer. They don't really see it as a big sport, And I think that a lot of that comes down to traditionalism. People that work in the US betting market are very stuck to the idea that, oh, the summer's come round, that means it's baseball. And, oh, we've got to get the hockey prices up this weekend. Well, baseball and hockey are absolutely dying as betting sports and have been for years in America. Whereas soccer as a TV sport is getting bigger and bigger and bigger in America, and as a participation sport as well. And partly that's because of Hispanic immigration, and partly it's because of the cost of entry. Like the equipment, you just need a ball basically and a place to kick it around, and so young kids can go and play soccer pretty easily. Whereas if they want to start playing hockey or NFL, gridiron or whatever, they need a lot more equipment. It's more expensive. It amazes me that soccer hasn't become, behind basketball and behind American football. It hasn't become the third biggest betting sport in America. Why do you think that is? And do you think that's going to change anytime soon? Do you think the World Cup will be the catalyst for it to change?
I think for American sports to soccer to really kick on, they need a very successful national team. If the MLS has worked out okay in terms of, but it brings in some big names, but towards the end of their career, Messi's over there, and obviously it's bringing in people and attention. But I think if the American national team did well, then I think that the people would get behind it a little bit more. But at this moment in time, they're a little bit off the pace in terms of world football. And we thought by now the American national team would probably.
It is amazing they haven't really caught up, isn't it?
No, it's like the African sides, wasn't it? When Pele said an African side's going to win a World Cup, they had that stage where Cameroon did all right in the 1990 World Cup, and Senegal and Nigeria and all those are sort of Ghana as well. I've looked, but they've never ever kicked on, and I think that's the American team needs it successful. And
but with the African nations, a lot of that's going to come down to money, isn't it? Whereas in America, it's amazing that with that television market and the market for buying, shirts and, whatever, it's amazing that nobody's really put the money in to make it happen.
Well, David Beckham's doing it in Miami. There's a lovely, nice, brand new stadium being built there. They've got the infrastructure to do it. And I think if they can have a decent World Cup in America, like get to the quarterfinals, maybe semi-finals, then there'll be an upsurge in betting turnover. I think the World Cup will be the biggest betting event. Well, it always is. Every World Cup comes around and takes over, and this would be the first one. One of the biggest ones since legalization of betting has happened in America, and it will be insane. And hopefully, we'll be here covering it for you on the Betting Weekly Studios. But I think the other thing that interests me, but just going back to the women's football slightly, right? We come to this conclusion. If these are two guys, myself and you, Neil. We've bet on pretty much every sport there is. We joke about your sumo bets and stuff like that. I just need to
double check the sumo results. Oh, sorry.
Have a check. Well, my friend yesterday. So this is the true story. So I went out yesterday. One of the guys I was with, he likes a gamble, and he went to the Oasis concert on Saturday. I got him tickets to go on Saturday. Went with his wife. Blah blah blah. In the early hours of the morning, he woke up and wanted to have a bet, and he was betting on Iranian under-21 basketball.
That can happen.
and I said, "Have you had a bet on this women's football?" He went, "No, I wouldn't bet on that." But you'd have a bet on the Iranian under 21 basketball.
By the way, there are groups that he can attend regularly. If he, perhaps I can get him some material if he's got a problem.
But what my point is that if you study this women's football and the liability and the volume is high and the liability is good, surely there's got to be an edge. There must be somebody watching this show who is a young kid who has the edge on the women's football with two injuries has got to be bigger than anything
I'll be
Premier League, League One, League Two.
Syndicates are not getting very involved in betting on women's soccer because, like you say, the extra, the markets are less liquid, so the prices move around more. And by definition, if you're, if you're an expert and you think you're better than the market at predicting the outcome, that gives you an opportunity to do very well. Of course, you might not going to be able to get as much as you want on. But as the TV coverage grows and the handle grows generally, the limits will go up and the syndicates will definitely get involved. Yeah, it's going to become a big betting sport for sure.
It's going to become, and I think there's got to be someone out there with an edge. So if you have got that edge, I don't mind £100, $150. I don't want to be big, but I want the edge. I want to know the gurus who know that the Ipswich ladies defenders absolutely crucial, and there's a 16-year-old girl coming.
Well,
in
I think
that's the guy. There must be huge edges on that.
Well, maybe this is it. Maybe it's a new show, and Because We Win, if you can find a good pundit for it.
Yeah,
Simon Holden. He could be the man.
I'm not quite sure about that, but I mean, he's a golf guru. He's got too much time spent on the golf. But I would like to find out these are the angles we're seeing. Find these upcoming sports where there's it's like going back to like in the glory days when there's edges on these things, and there's got to be some edges on this. So I like to see what's going on, and also as well, you get the ghost accounts going. All the women betting, because no one's going to say nothing about women betting on the women's football. She's a big fan. I mean, we get the wives and the girlfriends betting on.
Definitely, if a professional, if you work at a sports book and a woman opens an account and starts betting in 4-figure sums, absolute guaranteed it's a bid for a professional gambler. Absolute 100%.
It's a busy week of sport action as well. Some good racing going on this week across in the UK as well. It's the start of the lower league football season here, and obviously in America, the lower league football doesn't really get the volume in it, but everybody gets their parlays out, don't they? At the start of the season, then 4-team parlays and tries their dreams of putting $10 on them and hitting 1,000 or bigger throughout the season, give them some interest. Usually the parlays are dead and buried by Christmas, and no one's really bothered too much. But
we have talked, haven't we, in past weeks a little bit about this idea. Now, clearly, if you're a sports book and a guy comes on, and wants to bet an NFL team plus 7.5 points when the line is generally 7, and you're kind of thinking of changing it, and you're the last 7.5 out there, you're getting a very small margin against that guy over the year. If that's the only bet he has all month, this is a guy that's going to be hard to beat. Whereas if another guy comes in and he picks 6 teams and puts them in a parlay, well, the percentage that you might hold against that guy in the long run is probably going to be like 40%. And you're going to kill him in the long run, but you're going to kill him for small stakes. Whereas the other guy, if he does prove to be a long-term loser, you're probably going to beat him for much bigger stakes, but a much smaller percentage. So generally speaking, people would always advise don't do parlays because they're bad bets. But we have spoken before on the dojo about how that isn't always the case. And if you can find things where you have an edge, maybe because it's an illiquid market where the prices are inefficient and not really, they haven't really settled down yet, and you've got something that's sticking out at the wrong price, and you can put a two bet parlay or 2 selections in a parlay, or maybe 3. If you can find 3 like that, well, now you're multiplying up your edge and you're turning it into your favor. You increase your volatility. It's going to be harder to have a winner. You might have to have 20 of those bets before you get a winner. But the 20th one might pay more than 20 to 1 odds, and you'll get all your money back in one go. I think in this age of, first of all, high inflation, and secondly, account restrictions in terms of deposit limits because of know your customer, anti-money laundering, that kind of thing. Some books are stringent on how much you're allowed to deposit. And in the UK, we now have these ridiculous affordability checks where you have to send in a blood sample to prove that you can afford to have a small bet. Lots of people don't really want to tie up big amounts of money on season-long bets. And actually, I think they're right. If you want to have a sort of even 1,000 on this team to be ahead of this team over the season, first of all, you've got to have a pretty big edge on that bet just to beat inflation these days. And secondly, you're going to deposit maybe your whole month's allowance just to have one bet, and you could probably use that money a lot better, having lots of bets over the month or over the season. So I actually think there's a big argument for depositing way less to play these season. I think there is value in these season-long soccer bets, but I think you're much better off to play a lot of small parlays rather than do big singles. Have you done any parlays, Nigel? Have you got anything for me I can put in a parlay?
I've done. I haven't done it yet, but I've been working on it over the week. Well, working
come
on the
on.
weekend.
I'm pen poised. Let me write it down.
I always look. I look at everything. There's a few good podcasts that come out. There's a few good articles that come out, and then I just read what people say and think if they're my way of thinking. So, League One. This is probably the American market. Probably might not be so interesting in League One. I think you get much more of an edge in League One and League Two football compared to the English Premier League and the Championship. People sell players. People have big budgets. Teams do very, very well. Some teams have got very small budgets. And usually in these levels of football, money talks. I mean, last season in League One, the two teams that had the most money with American investment, Birmingham and Wrexham. Birmingham obviously won by a record amount of points. 111. They were plus 225 at the start of the season to win it. One of the best bets you'll see all year.
Amazing.
Wrexham come second with 92, which would have won it any other year.
And they've got the American film stars involved.
Yeah, they've got the American film stars, and Birmingham have obviously got the great, haven't they? Tom Brady involved. So money talks at this level of football, and they ran away with it. And the same the year before with Wrexham in League Two, where they have more money. So huge amount of money is important here.
Do you think the market underestimates that, though? I mean, obviously, it's not a secret that Wrexham have got more money because they've got Hollywood stars involved, but despite that, could you still make money from being with them?
Well, you did last year, but I think they underrated it last year. The Birmingham price of plus 225. I thought that was, I know it's hindsight, but I bet them last year at 9-4. They were trading even money within the first month of the season.
Give me a short list of 6 teams that have got all the cash this year to spend.
Well, I mean, the League One, Luton have obviously got a huge amount of money and a decent amount of money. They've got a best squad. They don't even have to invest. They've got so many goals in their squad. They've got players who can play at the higher level. They were very unlucky to go down last season. Their end of season form was fantastic. They just didn't do well at the very beginning of the season.
Okay, but does their price reflect it? Have they been hammered in the market?
Well, they're plus three. They're
plus
350. They're plus 350 to win League One, but they could turn out to be one of the best plus 350 shots of the year, really, if they continued their end of season form last year in a division lower. They've got money to invest, and this was a side that were a Premier League team 2 years ago.
All right, you got me. I'm putting Luton in my parlay.
They're obviously the Stockport interests me at 12-1. I think Stockport are very, very interesting. If you look at last season, Birmingham, Wrexham ran away with the division. Stockport come third in the division. They didn't go up because of the playoff system. Charlton obviously went up.
I'm already with Luton.
But they finished third.
What about the MK Dons lower down in the Division 2?
Well, they're owned by the Kuwaiti royal family. They've got something
well, they
to do
sound
with
like they've got money.
Well, they had money last year and they almost got relegated. I bet them last year. I was so badly done on them last year. I think they could. I mean, they're going to be in the shake-up. You got them down at, people have got them down at plus at 3-1. They're going to be right in the mix. They've got a good manager, who's done well at this level before. Last year, they changed their manager, I think, 3 times in the season. There was no structure. They had a load of good players that they weren't playing as a team. They'll go well, but, you can't rule them out. And, as an each-way double, MK Dons and Luton, it might sound the most ridiculous each-way double in the world.
That sounds
to
fabulous.
Some people,
I love the sound of that.
can't see how either the team can be out of the first 3. Chesterfield interests me at plus 650. I think it's a very big price. Again, very well managed side. And from the value perspective, Chesterfield would probably be a little bit more value for me, double the price of MK Dons. But I'm very interested in Barnet at 20-1. I think
Really?
Barnet interests me quite a lot because they have come up from the National League, and teams who come up from the National League really hold their own in the League Two. The gap between the top of the National League and the top of the League Two isn't that bad.
That makes sense.
Amazing.
That makes perfect sense to me, that people would think it's a whole division, but at the end of the day, when you're talking about these kind of lower quality football teams, there isn't really much between them, is there? A bit of
No.
money, it's sprinkled
And every
there
team
can make
who's
a
come
massive
up in the
difference.
if you look at the teams that have come up on that division, the National League, they've done really well the following year. So, like,
Yeah.
Wrexham went up, then they got automatically promoted. You had Chesterfield went up. You've got teams who have done really, really well. So, I think that they will hold their own. Chesterfield won it in 2024, and last year they just missed out on promotion. Wrexham won it in 2023. The following year they went up. Stockport won it in 2022, and now they're one of the favourites to get into the Championship. So the progression from the National League up is very, very good. And this is a good team. They ran away with the league last year. Loads of goals. Data are absolutely exceptional. They've got a goal scorer up front who can get 20-odd goals a season. And at 20-1, they'll be in the mix-up as well. So Barnet.
Right, okay. Well, that's it. You sold me. What about the Championship? Have we got one there?
What's that, sorry?
What do we think about the Championship? Have you got one for me there?
I haven't even looked at that yet because that doesn't start for another week.
Oh, okay. All right, we've got a whole week to worry about that. All right, well,
we got a week to worry about.
I'm definitely going to play. I'm definitely going to play Barnet in a each-way double with Luton. So that's a two-team parlay: Barnet and Luton, Division 2 and Division 1. And I'm going to do the MK Dons with Luton because, well, that looks like a great bet to me. I love that. You've got me, Nigel. You got me. That's what I want.
Well, I mean,
you to do the work, me to get the money.
Yeah, that's how it usually works. Yeah, that's about how it works. Yeah, they'll be they're nowhere near as good as like Birmingham last year. Like Birmingham last year, like 225 was just a gift, but they won't be far off the mix-ups, and each way you'd be okay. But we'll have all that covered for you on Betting Weekly Live this week and going into the new season. Betting Weekly Live every day, Monday, Friday at 11 o'clock Eastern Time, live with one of the handicapping team, breaking down all the odds in the new upcoming football season. Sorry, Neil?
Will I be able to read about that in the newsletter, Nigel?
The newsletter is not covering that. The newsletter this day is covering some tennis and some Champions League action, and you can subscribe to the newsletter by going to bettingweeklystudios.com. If you're enjoying what you see on these shows, make sure you subscribe to the newsletter, and the Insider comes out on Monday and Friday. But on Friday's edition, we will have a breakdown of the new seasons, and we'll have the Premier League season broken down. Last week we did a little preview of the Premier League, and we'll do some more as the build-up to the new soccer season starts. You get that on the Betting Weekly newsletter and Insider by subscribing at bettingweeklystudios.com. Also, Betting Weekly Tennis Live this week. It's a big week of tennis action. A men's and a women's event over in the 1000 in Canada, in Toronto and Montreal. We'll cover that at 1 o'clock Eastern Time. All the live in play with Bet Rivers. And Hardball and Fast Break, the American shows, headed up by Doug Kazarian, will be 3 p.m. and 4 p.m. as well, Monday through to Friday. So there's a huge amount of sport and action going on this week. You also got some big racing, Neil. You'll be doing some racing coverage today. What is it? Is it Chester?
It's Goodwood. It's Goodwood this week.
Goodwood.
So for
Glorious Goodwood.
stateside, Glorious Goodwood. It used to be called Glorious Goodwood. It's a beautiful course on the Sussex Downs. So if you know the map of the UK at all, you're talking about just kind of west of Brighton. It's beautiful chalk downland, lovely amphitheatre of a course, real high class racing. A lot of the horses that were running at Royal Ascot, they have their next big race of the year at Goodwood, and real top quality stuff. 5 days of it, sometimes 8 races a day, which is a lot in the UK. I know in America you normally have 10 race cards, but 8 race cards are quite unusual in the UK. So loads of betting opportunities. Going to be really busy on that. Working 20 hours a day on that.
I have been to Goodwood very luckily a few times, and when it's sunny, it's the most beautiful place in the world.
It's
when
horrible
it's raining, it's absolutely. I went there one year; it was windy, blowed all the marquees down. It's going to rain Tuesday and Thursday. I've just seen the weather forecast. It's going to be awful Tuesday and Thursday. It might not be so glorious. Goodwood definitely on Tuesday. It's going to be very, very wet and horrible. So it doesn't look that good there. So yeah, that's a Goodwood. I thought it was Chester this week. I thought it was Chester races.
I think we had there was a bit of Chester last week, but no, the big meetings at Chester, we're not, we've had one and there's one coming up, but yeah.
Okay. So if you have any comments, any questions you have for me and Neil, put it please in the comments box below here. That's going to be it for the little Betting Weekly Dojo this week. Looking ahead to up and coming stuff. Lots of sporting action coming, lots of more topics to talk about. If you've got anything you want to ask, you can do so on the comments. Keep them coming. What is it we've got to do, Neil? We've got to hit that subscribe button, haven't we?
Well, yeah. I mean, I hope the people that haven't subscribed are not thinking, oh, I don't need to bother now. They've got to 10,000. We're on the quest to get to 20,000. So if you like what you see and you don't want to miss a show, just press subscribe. Doesn't cost you anything. Hit like as well. You might as well. It's good for the algorithm. Gets more people to see our shows. And if you put a comment in the box, we had quite a few comments this week. I meant to pick up on some of them, but maybe we'll address them. We'll address a bunch of them next week because some people had some interesting thoughts. I particularly liked on social media, Niall Lyons came up. He was saying about when we were talking about the big favourites last week, he said he thought that was a great point, talking about there was a horse over here, the best horse ever, Frankel. And when you look at some of the prices Frankel was for its last 3 or 4 races, in hindsight, it's incredible because, we talk about this horse as completely unbeatable. But actually, it wasn't like it was going off at, minus 2,000 or something like that. It was often going off at minus 200, which doesn't sound like the price of an unbeatable horse to me. It's a very good point. And I think, we were both amazed that the prices on Scheffler for next year's majors hadn't really shortened up. They still haven't really shortened up. Quite surprising, really.
And we got a comment as well from someone about regency bias and tennis, and he was sort of saying that you can't be saying that Sinner and Alcaraz are going to dominate tennis for many years. And he listed 3 or 4 other players. He listed Artur Fils. He listed. Well, I tell you what, if you're watching this show, you can have 8 players, and I'll have them to have the next 3 years, and whoever gets the most majors. We'll have a wager, I think.
I did actually look at that one, and I thought, well, it's easy to have a go at you over that one because it'll be 5 years before we know who's right.
Yeah. So, but they're going to dominate for ages. And other than injury, they will dominate for many, many years. I think people said the same when Roger Federer and Rafa Nadal come on the scene, and look how dominant they were. It's a big week of tennis this week. Obviously, we got Bet Rivers have a huge amount of subscribers from Canada. We have a lot of Canadians on this show as well who watch this show. I think Canada's our third most popular in terms of our subscribers. America number 1, number 2 the UK, and number 3 Canada. So a big week of tennis action with your home tennis tournament, the men's and the women's at Montreal and Toronto. And it's an interesting tournament on the men's because no Sinner, no Alcaraz, no Djokovic, and no Jack Draper, which means it's 6-1 the field. So it's a real interesting tournament where you might get some shock winners. So there's content there going through that. I spoke to Sean. Sean wasn't able to do the show yesterday, but he gave me his picks, and I did a little show on that for you. And also spoke to Rory Giovanni about the women's draw, fresh off a win last week for Rory on the women's tour, which you'll be able to get on Betting Weekly Game Bet Match and Betting Weekly WTA on the YouTube channel. Okay, that's it for the week. Enjoy your week, Neil. Good luck with Goodwood. If you're going to go, take your umbrella. Oh, I keep saying I'm going to something. Went to the races for the first time in ages. Lingfield last Tuesday. 2 people come up to me, listen to the dojo, watch the stuff. Really
Wonderful.
Good. So yeah, very interesting on that. So make sure you listen. Good luck with your wagers. Get those anti-pace football bets on. The action starts on Friday. Head across to the BetRivers website. Download the app as well. And we'll be back this time next week to be some more betting content and stories from the Betting Weekly Dojo. Take care.